All right, let's dive right in. We're talking about OpenAI's GPT-5. And look, if you're in any kind of leadership role, this is something you absolutely need to have on your radar. And here's why. This is not just another little update. We're talking about a fundamental paradigm shift, a change in how your entire business can think about and use AI. It's about moving from a simple tool to a genuine strategic partner. So, OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, he dropped this bombshell of a quote. It's like talking to a PhD-level expert in anything. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. What would it actually mean to have an expert like that on call for any task, anytime? That's what we're going to unpack. We're going to see how that wild idea is actually becoming a reality. And, more importantly, what it means for you and your team.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about this new AI paradigm. Then we'll get into the weeds a bit on the intelligent unified architecture. That's the engine making it all possible. We'll stress test that PhD-level claim, see if it holds water. Then we'll look at how AI goes from being a simple assistant to a full-blown agent. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a concrete 90-day plan you can actually use. Sound good? Let's go.
So, let's be honest. For the last few years, AI has been kind of like a cool sideshow for a lot of businesses, right? Fun to play with, but not essential. Well, with GPT-5, that all changes. This is the moment. This is the inflection point where AI officially moves out of the lab and into the boardroom. It's becoming a core piece of your strategic toolkit.
You know, for the longest time, the whole conversation around AI was just about chatbots and, some fun little experiments. That whole era, it's over. The conversation has totally pivoted to strategic integration. We're not asking, hey, what can this thing do anymore? Now the questions are things like, how does this optimize my supply chain? Or how can this supercharge our market research? Or even, how can this completely redefine our product development cycle? The stakes are way, way higher now.
Okay, so what's the big change under the hood that makes all this possible? Well, it's a total redesign of the architecture, and it's built to solve one massive problem that plagued earlier AI models: just how complicated they were to use. OpenAI is basically saying, the model zoo is now closed for business. Right, so think about it. Before, to get the most out of OpenAI, you kind of had to be an expert yourself. You had to know whether to pick GPT-4o for this or some other model for that. It was a whole mess. A model zoo is the perfect term for it. Confusing, and it just slowed you down. The new way, it's one single unified system. All that complexity is now handled for you behind the scenes. So you get to focus on your work, not on picking the right tool.
And this is the secret sauce. This is the magic that makes it all work so seamlessly. At the core of GPT-5, there's something they're calling an intelligent router. Just think of it like this system's brain. It takes one look at what you're asking and instantly figures out, okay, does this person need a fast, snappy answer, or do they need some deep, heavy-duty thinking?
So here's how it works in the real world. You type in your prompt, the system instantly analyzes it, figures out your intent and how complex the query is. Then, that intelligent router sends it down the right path, either to the fast chat engine or the deep thinking engine. And what comes back to you? One single, perfectly optimized response. The big takeaway here is you get the best of both worlds, speed and power, without ever having to think about it. Okay, so we know the new architecture is way smarter, but how much smarter? Is that PhD-level expert thing just some fancy marketing talk? Nope. It's actually backed by some pretty mind-blowing numbers when it comes to accuracy. Let's look at just how reliable this thing is. Let's start with the really important stuff, the high-stakes tasks where you just can't afford to be wrong. When you need that deep analytical power, GPT-5's thinking mode is a whopping 80% less likely to spit out a factual error than the last version. I mean, think about that. That's a huge leap in trust. It's what makes it actually viable for things like financial modeling, legal analysis, or even serious scientific research. And that improvement isn't just for the super complex stuff. Across the board, the rate of hallucination, when the AI just kind of makes things up, has been smashed down to just 4.8%. Now, to put that in perspective, older models were often over 20%. Bringing it under 5%, that is the tipping point for enterprise adoption. It's what makes it feel safe and truly reliable. But what about at its absolute peak?
when you push it to its limits? Well, they tested it on the AME 2025, which is this ridiculously hard math competition meant for the absolute brightest human minds, and GPT-5 scored a perfect 100%. That's not just an improvement. That's proof of a world-class genius-level ability to reason through incredibly complex problems.
So, we've established it's incredibly smart, like genius-level smart. But that intelligence unlocks something way more powerful. GPT-5 isn't just a passive assistant that you ask questions. It's becoming an active agent that can go and do things for you. And this is especially true in the world of software and code. This has given rise to this really cool concept that people are calling vibe coding. So imagine just describing an app you want in plain English, like, hey, build me a tool that tracks customer feedback from Twitter. And then you just watch as it generates the entire functional application. We've gone way past just getting little code snippets. This is like having a creative partner that can build entire projects from a simple idea.
And the business impact of that is like a domino effect. First, you empower your non-technical people, your marketing team, your sales team, to build their own simple tools. They become citizen developers. This, in turn, makes prototyping new ideas insanely fast. And what does that do? It frees up your senior engineers from all that tedious work so they can focus on the big picture, the really hard strategic problems, like system architecture and security. It's just a massive boost for agility across the whole company.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. It's powerful, it's a game changer, we get it. But now let's talk about the how. Because the real value here only comes from putting it to work strategically. So let's break down a clear, actionable 90-day plan for getting GPT-5 up and running in your organization starting right now. A structured, phased approach is absolutely the way to go here. In your first 30 days, just focus on education. Get your teams playing with it, have them run workshops, and start identifying those high-impact use cases for your specific business. Then, for the next month, days 31 to 60, you launch a few low-risk pilot projects. Pick internal-facing tasks, things where you can clearly measure efficiency gains. Then, in that final month, days 61 to 90, you evaluate. You take all that data, the metrics on time saved, on better output, and you use it to build an undeniable business case for a wider strategic rollout across the entire company.
So you see, this is why GPT-5 isn't just a better chatbot. It's a strategic asset. It really is that PhD-level expert on call for every single department in your business. The leaders who are going to win in the next decade, they're the ones who start deliberately weaving this intelligence into the fabric of their business today. Which brings us back to that final crucial question. Who are you going to have it work for first?